It's shot to the top of the bestseller list in the UK on day one. Virginia Giuffre's memoir, Nobody's Girl, exposes the rich and powerful men surrounding disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein and the abuse she endured as a 17-year-old, including from Prince Andrew, who last week relinquished his royal duties ahead of publication. Giuffre, who committed suicide back in April. More from Eliza Herbert.
Prince Andrew long sought to distance himself from sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. But the stories stacked up and one proved fatal to his royal title of Duke of York. In a posthumous memoir by Virginia Giuffre, she wrote that Andrew believed having sex with her was his birthright and alleged she was forced to have sex with him on 3 occasions, even when she was 17. On Sunday, Andrew released a statement vigorously denying accusations against him, but concluded, following a discussion with the King, that they were distracting from the work of His Majesty and royal family, and thus he renounced his titles. Experts say the move is unlikely to stop the public scrutiny.
And we have to remember at the heart of all this is not really the royal family at all. It is the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, and Virginia Giuffre being one of them. We're going to hear very, very harrowing details of her life and the sex trafficking she was subjected to, and that is going to spawn more headlines.
Prince Andrew stepped back from public life in 2006. Years later, in a well-publicised interview on Newsnight, he said he had cut ties with Epstein in 2010. However, an email emerged recently in UK media in which Andrew wrote to the disgraced financier in 2011 to say, "We are in this together." He also agreed to pay a £12 million settlement to Giuffre in 2022. Andrew will remain a prince as he is the second son of the late Queen Elizabeth II. His former wife, Sarah Ferguson, will no longer use the title of Duchess of York.
And for more, let's cross to historian Andrew Lownie. He's the author of Entitled, The Rise and Fall of the House of York. Thank you so much for speaking with us here on France 24.
Pleasure.
First off, when did you first have an inkling that Prince Andrew, something was amiss when it came to Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, I mean, clearly there's been a lot of coverage of his relationship with Epstein going back to, I suppose, 2011. I started researching this book about 5 years ago, and it was very quickly apparent that the relationship with Epstein, both of Sarah Ferguson and Andrew, was much closer, began much earlier, and ended much later than they had claimed publicly. Indeed, I discovered that almost everything that Prince Andrew says has to be double-checked for the truth. But I think, you know, clearly the publication today of Virginia Giuffre's book really brings home the relationship, the extraordinary, awful way in which she and other victims were treated. And I think the fact that she's speaking from beyond the grave has a certain poignancy. Andrew probably thought he was off the hook, and now I think he's absolutely on the ropes.
Can you explain to us his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson? What is the relationship between Prince Andrew, Sarah Ferguson, and Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, both of them, both Sarah Ferguson and Andrew, were close friends of Epstein. Epstein paid many of Sarah Ferguson's debts. She claims 15,000. The true figure is nearer probably £2 million. She herself said that she'd cut off links with Epstein at the beginning of 2011. A few weeks later, she was writing to him in very effusive terms, and she continued to stay at his properties until at least 2014, which rather puts a lie to her public denouncement of him. But she was worried clearly about a career with charities dealing with children. But I think what Epstein got from them was some sort of kudos status. He was able to go to what he called the hat trick of Balmoral, Sandringham and Windsor Castle. And they got, of course, money, which is what they needed. And Andrew, of course, got as a sideline a ready supply of young women.
You heard in that report there, one expert saying this won't taint the royal household. This is all just about Andrew. Do you agree?
No, I don't. I think they've had years to deal with this problem. They knew about it. They covered it up. Jeffrey herself speaks in her book, and I also talk about it, about the way they tried to, well, they did successfully shut down the ABC TV investigation into Andrew by threatening to remove any access to the royals. Time and time again, things were taken to the Queen, complaints about his behaviour, and nothing was done. The Queen, in fact, used to give him honours just after some sort of scandal. So they're deeply implicated in all this. They've tried to put pressure on writers. The Foreign Office, for example, were told not to speak, ambassadors were told not to speak to me. I think that there is something rotten in the state of Denmark, that there needs to now be a full investigation into Andrew's activities and indeed into wider questions of royal accountability and transparency.
Is there more transparency?
For far too long.
Is there more transparency now that it's Charles that's the king?
No, I'm afraid there isn't. I mean, the royal wills are still unsealed. There's no royal register. Royals are still part of the Freedom of Information Act and therefore are exempt. We have a situation where, for example, all the files on Andrew's time as a trade envoy, taxpayer-funded position, are still closed. And we have no parliamentary scrutiny of the royals. And these things, I think, need to change for their own sake, because they depend on the trust of the people. And at the moment, trust in the institution is rock bottom.
In your book, Andrew Lownie, you write that Prince Andrew was, quote, easy prey for a rattlesnake like Epstein. Can you explain?
Well, Epstein was a very sophisticated operator, and Andrew, I'm afraid, is not. And he was low-hanging fruit. Epstein could see, Epstein described him and Bill Clinton as his Super Bowl trophies. These were his two star characters that he could exploit and play with. And take advantage of. And I certainly, Andrew has been caught in what we call compromat, probably in honey traps. So there's a lot of material around in which people could put pressure on Andrew. We know that Epstein traded in information with other countries and other intelligence services. So there are wider questions of national security. And indeed, I think one of the things that's made the king act on Friday were complaints from the government about Andrew's associations with alleged Chinese spies.
Alleged Chinese spies? Does it go beyond China? You use the word compromat. That's a Russian word.
Yes, I mean, I certainly quote a Russian spy in my book. I quote someone called Tim Riley, who an ex-Cambridge academic and a member of worked for Kroll, talking about Russian compromat. We know that he was compromised in Kazakhstan, very close relations with Russia, but was also Libya, Middle East, and China. They all understand have compromat on Andrew. So this is a wider question. It goes beyond his own financial corruption to actually how the institution itself connived in supporting and protecting him and knowing exactly what he was up to, and into wider national intelligence issues. So it's really quite a serious matter. I think the most serious crisis for the monarchy since the abdication crisis of 1936.
Bigger than the death of Princess Diana?
Yes, because here we're talking about financial corruption within the royal family. That was just really the death of the ex-wife of the future king. I mean, this goes to the heart of the institution itself and wider questions of why they protected him. And I would argue that I've only got the tip of the iceberg and some of the things that have been going on. So there needs to be much, much wider accountability. I would like a parliamentary investigation, for example, into his time as a trade envoy with ambassadors who know exactly what he was up to. He was shoehorning in business for his mates, being able to, having to testify on oath to exactly what has happened.
At the outset of this conversation, Andrew Lownie, you mentioned that with the publication of Virginia Giuffre's book, it's also about these young women, girls sometimes, who were preyed upon. And the title of your book is Entitled. And it goes beyond just the royals. This sense of entitlement, does that still exist today as it did back then?
Absolutely. I think, you're absolutely right. It's part of a much wider network of elites who believe that they can operate exactly as they want and take advantage of the vulnerable. I mean, many of these young girls that were trafficked to Andrew and others and they ordered them from sort of books of photographs, were, young, early teenagers, couldn't speak English, many of them aspiring models brought through the model agencies of people like Jean-Luc Brunel. So yes, it is a wider question about rich and powerful people abusing their power and trying to control the narrative. I think the exciting thing is the media have now woken up to the scandal and are actually investigating it. And this is why, these scandals are emerging day by day. I envisage a number of people perhaps being investigated and I hope having to stand trial. Many powerful people in both countries, certainly in Britain and America.
Yeah, one final question for you, Andrew Lownie. What do you make of, you just issued your call for an investigation into how the royals behaved in Britain. What do you make of the reaction in the UK versus the reaction in the United States?
Well, I think with they're quite similar in some ways. I mean, we've had concerns in America about what the swamp and Trump offering to open files of things that people thought had been controversies that are being covered up. And I think we're getting exactly the same thing here. I mean, I think the sad thing is that Trump clearly is not going to perhaps fully open the Epstein files because he's fearful of what it might actually reveal. But we certainly have got to a tipping point in this country, and I think it's happened literally over the last weekend. I go around talking at literary festivals to the sort of people in Middle England who are traditionally supporters of the monarchy, as I am, who are appalled by Andrew's behaviour and the way it's been covered up by the institutions that they believe should be protecting and representing us.
Andrew Lownie, the author of Entitled, The Rise and Fall of the House of York. So many thanks for speaking with us here on France 24.
Not at all.
Stay with us, there's much more to come, more news plus the day's business and sports.